Welcome to Nosebleed Seats. This is the Mystic Order of Arachnid Vigilance, member number 5706. Today we're going to continue with our most influential names in Central Illinois pro wrestling scene. Our guest today, Bloody Harker Dirge. Harker Dirge, merchandise, very important to Harker Dirge. I believe he's the only wrestler not associated with a major independent such as Chikara, ROH, Pro Wrestling, Gorilla, who has his own Champions of the Galaxy card. Very unique in that aspect to be an independent wrestler chosen for that. The shirts, always nice graphic designs. How important do you think it is to brand yourself with your merchandise and get that out there to the fans?
Well, it's real important, not only to make a couple bucks, but to help the whole entertainment package, help people remember you and have something to hold on to physically, that they remember you for next time you're in town. For me, it's always been job one. Even when you don't have the money, you better find the money to invest and put into the pictures, t-shirts. I've been fortunate to have good people help me out with graphic design. I don't do any of that myself. My new shirt's done by an artist called Steve Stanley, who used to do all graphic for the WCW t-shirts, so they had Wolfpack and all that stuff. I contacted him, had inmates and stuff, paid him permission on it. And it catches the eye, it's important. I think back to when I was a fan, they had all the toys were new. They not like you could get them everywhere now, they were new. And if I could get the toy of the wrestler, I'd be more interested in that wrestler watching him on TV. Well, let's think about that. If I was interested because I had the merchandise, if I give somebody something to hold on to, maybe they'd be interested in me too. But it's not just to be interested in me. I want them to be interested in the product of wrestling so they'll continue to come. So it's not just about building me, it's about building the entire show.
I really like your merchandise in the fact that if I go to like a midnight showing of a horror movie and someone sees a Harker Dirge t-shirt, they're not going to necessarily associate with that with wrestling. And they're going to say, oh, what's that, Harker Dirge? Is that a movie? Is that this? Or is that that? And that gets them talking.
Like the flyers. Yeah. Catches their attention, gives them something to talk about, a conversation piece. It's important. You got to be different. You got to dare to be different. And it takes courage to be different, too. But I would never discourage anybody who's different from being anything else, you know.
Apparently there are rumors flying around about you being the Brood in the early days of Attitude Era. I haven't heard these rumors, but would you want to address that? So,
but I think what you're thinking about is the Kevin Thorne and the ECW thing.
Yeah.
And I just changed over to doing the Harker Dirge, and I had the people calling me the Vampire, and then ECW was going to be on the Sci-Fi Channel. And the rumor came out, they're looking for characters to be on this ECW show. And for the first time ever, I had just moved back from Michigan to Illinois. I moved around quite a bit. I just moved back from Michigan to Illinois. I was trying new things and I didn't have a job. And for the first time, I had sent my package to WWE with the gimmick in it. And they started saying, WWE's looking at a vampire wrestler. I just sent my stuff a couple weeks ago. People said, was that you? I said, could be. I don't know, could be. You know, like that. Like, could be. To get my name out there. I didn't know for nothing. So, next thing I know, it's all over the internet. And I think that day, I had a personal website at the time. I think that same day that the rumor hit all over the internet, I had something like 100,000 page hits in one day. When usually it was like maybe a dozen a day.
Right.
So that's the power of a rumor right there. But best I know, it was always just rumors. I never talked to anybody on the phone. Nothing was ever confirmed. But it did help me get my name out there to attach myself to that rumor, and my price did go up for a little while because of it.
I'm going to segue into this question.
I'd also like to mention, when I did tag team with Kevin Thorne, and he broke Crime Fighter's camera, Thorne did seem to know who I was before I shook his hand. So there must have been something going on.
Okay. Very good.
He probably said, who is this? Let me look him up.
There are two wrestlers in WWE that tend to be really popular with the Mexican crowd. That's Rey Mysterio, which is for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But for some reason, The Undertaker has took on this mythical status amongst the Mexican crowds. Have you had the honor to perform in front of a predominantly Mexican crowd, particularly a Lucha Libre show?
Yeah, but in the U.S.
And how do they react to the Harker Dirge character?
They liked it. They dig it. I think it goes back to some of their, their legends have always done horror movies too. Mil Mascaras and Santo, Blue Demon. There's always been a crossover, Mascaras versus Dracula or whatever. So maybe that's part of the culture. I know La Parka was always real big. I performed on a Lucha Libre show once in Detroit. Excuse me. In front of a predominantly, on Cinco de Mayo, it was in front of a predominantly Mexican, I assume Mexican, Hispanic crowd, and they liked it, they dug it, man.
You were a prominent member of PWI roster. What are your thoughts about that organization?
Which one?
Powerhouse.
Powerhouse Wrestling
okay.
in Lincoln, Illinois.
Mostly it was Powerhouse Championship Wrestling when I was with him. And I still talk to Tim Lyle today. Tim quit the business several years ago, and he found out, when he quit the business, I had not talked to him in years because my beef was with his partner at the time. I don't need to say his name, but I'll tell you what, if I ever see him, he'll know who I am. He'll know how big my hand is and how much it fits across his face, as a matter of fact. But I get along with Tim. I had a beef with his partner. And Tim found out something, that when you don't have a ring in the middle of the gym anymore and something to offer people, wrestlers tend to disappear. And sometimes you make a few real friends out of the deal. Tim's a real guarded individual, and I know why. When you're a promoter, you get screwed over a lot. But I'd call him a friend, so I won't never say anything bad about Powerhouse. They had their ups and downs, but when they were hot, man, there was nothing hotter. They could run a street or high school and just pack the place. One of the bigger cards I was on, as a matter of fact, they must have had a couple thousand in there for the Road Warriors and Iron Sheik on the card. Iron Sheik was my manager that night, and that was one of the hotter cards that I've been on for Power. So when they were up, they were up. When they were down, it was like the rest of us when we're down. 18 people in a parking lot somewhere.
Did you have the, before he passed away, were you able to perform with Botch on a show?
No, that was after my days.
Okay.
I think I wrestled on cards with Botch a couple times at the Wizard World Comic conventions that we did maybe 5 years in a row, and Botch would come in because he's from Chicago. But Botch didn't start with Powerhouse until I left, which was when they started doing Lincoln. I only wrestled on one of those Lincoln shows, the first one that was there. After that, there was a falling out, and then they started to run Lincoln almost exclusively, I think, and I wasn't involved in any of that.
CM Punk describes wrestling at one of those Wizard World shows. Were you there? Were you there for that incident?
I was there. I was running the locker room because the promoter had gone in the Tim. I think it was the same card. Tim bought himself a Darth Vader costume and was walking around the convention the day before, and he forgot to drink water and he dehydrated. So he had me running the locker room the next day. No, Tim was there on this one. So I was running the locker room, but he wasn't feeling well. It's hard. I've had 1,000 matches. I can't remember all of them. But I do remember that one because they came there and showed up, asked to be in the card. Tim said, "Should I let these guys on?" I said, "Yeah, you absolutely should. They're good wrestlers." And in the middle of the match, Tim comes to me. I'm in the back. He's watching the matches. He was ring announcer. Comes to me and he says, "What in the hell are they doing?" I said, "I don't know. What are you talking about?" He said, "They're doing a chorus line in the ring." We mean chorus line. I looked out, and they were doing all comedy spots and running wrestling drills. And I said, I don't know what to think about it. Tim was upset. He cussed them when they came through the door, and they cussed him back. And that's all I know about it. I don't know what CM Punk's saying.
Basically, he describes the incident. It was he had a Friday and a Saturday show. Decided he wanted to wrestle there on a Sunday. You're right. They threw. They did like a powder thing, but they did like a ridiculous amount of powder where it filled the whole ring. They were doing midget
spots,
midget wrestling during the thing, and Tim Lyle did not feel too good about that. And we'll call CM Punk brash. That's probably an accurate way to describe him. So he had his own opinion.
Here's my heat. Here's my heat that I'll get. Brash. Can I cuss on this?
Yeah, go ahead. He'll edit it.
Delete it.
From that show, I'd never met him before, but I knew his reputation, and I knew Cabana, and I liked Colt. from his reputation, he was still green in the business. I mean, he traveled and he put it into, won't take anything away from his hard work, but from day one, apparently, he already thought he was a superstar. And I met him and he looked at me kind of down his nose, you know, and I thought, who is this? But I still told Tim, yeah, let him on. He rubbed me the wrong way, let him on. So yeah, brass should be a way to say it. He always knew. I said, but you know what I said that night? I said, it's guys like that make it in the business. He said, what do you mean? I said, you got to step on toes to get to the top. He's willing to do it. But I remember Tim said, what the hell was that? It was Tunes, brother. He says, Tunes is Jimmy Valiant. That was mockery of the business. Tim's old school. They were part of the new school, Chikara, but I think that probably led to the Chikara type mentality. So it was just a clash of generations.
CM Punk actually hates Chikara because they've made fun of him in the past.
That's what he was doing at the Wizard Convention.
Yeah, so
they made fun of him. They're the ones put Necro Butcher.
CP Monk, yes, yeah. So yeah, I think even people who love CM Punk have a CM Punk story for meeting them every time you
gets
meet
bad
them.
reviews at the autograph signings. And
Yeah,
that. But you know, if he's happy with his life, he's done something good for himself.
Right, that's what I say. There is a feeling, particularly for my colleague Crime Fighter, that Powerhouse kind of looked down its nose at the other Central Illinois talent as being not as good. Yeah.
They call them backyarders.
So,
and it's the same thing. It's a generation clash.
Right.
It's just he's old school, and you got in a certain way, and these guys weren't in the same way as him. So it's just generational clash.
Generational clash.
He didn't speak ill of them as people.
Right.
Just he didn't like their style or the way they got in.
Very good. The middle of your career, leaving Powerhouse, becoming a regular in Central Illinois, how did you first get involved with organizations like Great American Wrestling, who used to run in this building, we're wrestling today, Next Generation Wrestling, New Breed Wrestling Alliance, and the others?
I just moved back to Rantoul, and the chief of police in Rantoul is a former wrestler. And he was running it, this was in the summer, he was running a show in Rantoul at the fitness center on July 4th. And I contacted him, let him know I was in town, and I told him who trained me, and Chief's old school. So when I mentioned an old school name, it kicked down the door. He said, absolutely, I want you in the card. And I believe that night, TJ and his boys were, no, TJ was on the card as a manager, and his boys were in the stands. And afterward, they came and mentioned me about New Breed and booked me on a show for Watsika. It turned out to be a hell of a weird show. And from there, it just, one thing after the next, everything in life's a stepping stone, so you meet this guy, the other, and even the ones that weren't necessarily old school, polished wrestling, were nice guys, neat guys to be around, so I enjoyed it. And the travel was perfect because I'm used to 6-hour drives, and to drive an hour, 2 hours to get to a show and be home at a decent time was great for me.
Speaking of New Breed, I don't know what your full capacity there was as a trainer, mentor. What do you think your long-lasting effects on that talent pool as a mentor or a trainer have been? Would you consider yourself successful in that area?
It's ring training, though.
Okay.
The ones that I trained from scratch are really good. Some of them had already had habits because they'd had a lot of matches under the belts, and I couldn't break the habits. My long-lasting impact on New Breed and on the entire area in Central Illinois, I think I got them in wrestling gear.
Yeah.
They're not wearing baggy pants and tennis shoes anymore. They're wearing boots and tights. I found a distributor that I could put them onto, and if anybody needs wrestling gear, I'm not hard to find. I have a distributor who can make custom gear for you. Find me and contact me. I'll hook you up. Nobody does. Better gear for the price, guaranteed. And I got them on wrestling gear, and that was job one. And I put a couple gimmicks on some of them. They're still getting booked based on those gimmicks today.
Very good, very good.
The only ones I trained from scratch was Jimmy Carrot. I had him, he was the only one I had from day one. The other one I had from closest to day one was Serenity. And those two have done well. They're all good. You know, all of them that are still around are good.
speaking of Serenity, what do you feel women have? Where do you feel women belong in the business? Where do
In
you
the
think
ring wrestling.
In the ring wrestling.
I have deep respect for the women who have wrestled before us. Fabulous Moolah, who started and used to run the wrestling, but one of my favorites of all time was Sherry Martell, who I got a chance to meet. She was a really nice woman. My wife was always a fan growing up. She was a big fan of Sherry, and she would go to the cards from the time she was a little kid, dressed as Sherry. And Sherry got to know her from the autograph signings and seeing her dressed like her throughout the years. And finally, when I got to meet Sherry, was up in Canada on a wrestling card, and I brought my wife with me. And we thought, well, she hadn't seen her since she was a little kid. We walked through the door. My wife's name's Melissa. Sherry goes, "Missy!" Remembered her after all those years. Just a genuine woman. And another one of my favorites, Luna Vachon, who I got to work with. One of the nicest women you would ever meet. And through watching them wrestle hard and good and solid, and not disrespect themselves or not disrespect females in general, and be just good wrestlers and professionals more than that. Give me a deep respect for women as wrestlers.
Very good.
And that's where they belong, is in the ring, being respected, having matches on cards with private locker rooms, not thrown in with the men. That's another thing that irritates me. It's not only disrespectful to the women, but to the men. When you've got a women's match on a card and you try to throw them in the same locker room, treat them with respect, because they will draw if you put them on the card right. They'll bring fans, but don't treat them like TNA either. Not TNA, T&A, which stands for something that you kids at home shouldn't know about yet till you've at least had 12th grade education.
Wrestling exploits in Indiana, Michigan, Louisiana, I believe.
No, Ohio.
Ohio. That's Ohio. Particularly AA or AWWL. Can we?
AWWL is the Michigan group. It's the primary base right now is in Jackson. That's the Far Hats, the Sheik Sons. I had a contract with them for several years, and this last time the contract came up is when I quit. Now that's why I'm back here in Central Illinois, because I'm allowed to be now, because I wasn't really allowed to take that many bookings. But I'm happy to be back in this area and hopefully making a difference and helping people out where I can, but also entertaining the fans. I enjoyed entertaining the children. I love them all, but the smart, smart marks. Forgive the term if it's offensive, but they're going to be entertained no matter what. But I'm interested in those kids that jump up and down. But there's a new group of fans that I see coming out who are the older generation that just want to get back into the old-time wrestling. Older men, and they bring their wives and sometimes their sons who are older than me by quite a bit. And I like to entertain them too, and I think I give them something that they can look back on, the Dick the Bruiser style, the 80s style even. Man, I think we're bringing it all together if we do the right things here. But as far as AWWL, I did my thing there. It was good. We did TV almost every show. I learned how to work on TV, to be for the camera, and that sort of thing. So it was a good experience. I mean, it didn't end well, although I do still have the belt. Didn't end well, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. And the wrestlers there are really hard workers.
I have older aunts and uncles, even to watch the WWE style. They grew up with wrestling in the Chase. Grandpa, Grandma when she was still alive, to watch even WWE, watching wrestling on TV. What is this? This isn't wrestling.
They don't get it. I don't get it. I'm not trying to sound like an old timer because I'm only. I started 17 years ago, but I was only a fetus when I started. I'm still young, so I don't sound like an old guy, but I don't get it anymore. What is it? Talking?
Yeah.
It's just it's weak. And I like to watch a good wrestling match, but I like the angles too. I like the drama as much as anybody. My favorite thing was the Superstation on TBS coming up, and they did it in the interview. My favorite style is Memphis. If you want to get down, one of the best compliments I was ever given, as a matter of fact. I never told people I was Memphis influenced, but Scott D'Amore, who was he's a Border City Wrestling in Canada, and he was working for TNA when they started, and they were down at the Nashville Fairgrounds once a month, and he told me on a card, he said, every time I go to Nashville at the fairgrounds, I think of you. I said, well, that's a great compliment. I said, next time you talk about booking people, think of me then too. He never did. Although, I was Matt Maverick at the time, and they did turn out to have a Maverick Matt come on the show. Coincidence? I don't know.
Speaking of Matt Maverick, there's another Matt Maverick in Southern Illinois right now.
Yeah, where'd he come from?
Yeah, you've heard about them? Didn't you even have a friend that?
The way I came on to him is somebody I hadn't talked to since 1998. He moved out to California and got into producing independent movies. And he called me out of the blue, and he says, man, I was looking you up. He goes, I hadn't talked to you in a while. I was looking you up on the internet, and I remembered you were Matt Maverick, and I found you on YouTube. He goes, but something wasn't right. Have you kind of let yourself go? I said, what are you talking about? He goes, I said, I'm not Matt Maverick anymore. I'm Harker Dirge. He goes, oh, I didn't know that. I talked on a cell phone, and I got on the internet, and I looked it up. I said, that's not me, brother. That's not, I didn't let myself, I'm not saying the guy don't hit the gym, but he might hit the pizza parlor when he hits the gym. Now you're going to have heat with me, but he's not, he's polite. I've met him once, I think. He's polite, so I get no heat with him, but I don't know how he came across that name. It seems like a crazy coincidence, but there's also one in New Jersey that's a little skinny guy, and I think he does a surfer gimmick.
It's odd. A lot of ocean in New Jersey.
I came up with it. You want to know how I got the name?
Yes.
As a fan, reading the wrestling magazines, I think it was called Wrestling Eye. It was one of the first smart magazines, but it really wasn't if you read it now. But they would say real names and stuff like that. And it had a picture of Wahoo McDaniel giving Magnum TA the chop, and it said, Veteran Matt, M-A-T, Maverick, Wahoo McDaniel. Matt Maverick. I'm going to take it. I stole it from a caption on a picture in a magazine, and now two other guys had the name. They didn't read that magazine.
We actually recently interviewed Frank Cruda for our audio podcast, editor-in-chief, and we talked about a list that you were on this year. You've been on there 2 years. You were number 398 this year.
Yeah.
The Pro Wrestling Illustrated 500. Does that help you at all? Does that give you an ego boost at all? No.
It's nice, and I like it, but at this point, I don't think the magazines have enough distribution to help anything. They give you a legitimacy, and you know it gives you a little bit of legitimacy because all the indie guys that aren't on the list talk about how stupid and made up the list is. Until they get on the list, and then they talk about how great the list is, and they want you to know what their number was. But it's hard to find that magazine now. Somebody mentioned it to me, and I wanted to read my write-up. So I look all the newsstands. You can't find it anymore. So I think the distribution is a little low, but it's neat because I came up as a kid reading the magazines. I think it's been 20 years they've done it?
Yeah.
21 years that they've done the list, so I came up reading it as a small kid, and it's neat to be involved with something, although I would have liked to have been involved in it in the heyday, and I really would like to get my picture in there next to my name, but
yeah.
I think I have to have my photo published in one of the almanacs or something like that.
Very cool, very cool.
That helps more than just a name on a page.
Yeah.
If they have a face, they get attached to it.
Well, we will certainly, if we talk to Frank Cruda again, encourage him. I don't know what we can do as fans, but
no, you guys. I know he always talks about you guys. He says you're the ones he's trying to impress. You two specifically.
Oh, excellent.
What you didn't know, that's how I got on the list. I called him personally. He said, "Well, you know those guys?" Yup. He goes, "You're good."
Very cool. Future of Central Illinois Wrestling. 01, UWC, Green Wave. You see, I personally feel we're thriving right now. We've got a lot of, people on that PWI list, which means something to me as a fan. I'm a fan through and through.
Yeah.
Do you think Central Illinois has a strong future? Is it just too hard to tell? Is it year by year?
It's in cycles. It comes and goes. People always say cycles like a generic answer. But it is, because now it's about where, it's looking like it's about where it was 6 years ago as far as the locals. But I really see such an opportunity for a territory in this area
Right.
that nobody catches on to. And I'm not gonna spend my money to do it. But I just don't think there's an investor with the vision right now. Everybody is happy with their subsection. I've got Maroa, I have Georgetown, I have this town. If they all maybe come together and run a territory and only use the best, we can travel week to week, have a show that fed off one to the next and have a little territory in our own little Illinois instead of having 5, 6 promoters.
Someone you think who has a lot of potential in our area, and someone who you think is the top in our area right now, if you had to just off the top of your head pick one or the other.
I don't know. Some of them are real good right now and they're hitting a peak. They just have to keep their attitudes in check and realize that they're not stars, they're independent wrestlers. And you got me politically stymied because I don't want to pick one name out and forget another. But I'm not trying to be, I'm politically incorrect as it can be if you talk to me off camera. But so I'm not trying to be, walk on eggshells about it. Matt Cage is good. And I'll tell you what impressed me about him is his visual appearance has improved. His last time I hadn't seen him in months, maybe a year. And his arms were bigger, he's been hitting the gym, he's working on his presentation. If he can keep everything in line, professional and going the way he's doing, he could get his name out there.
Where can maybe promoters contact you if they want to have them, want to have you fight on their show?
Harker Dirge on public on Facebook. I used to have a website, but people don't use those anymore. Everybody wants to know what your Facebook is. It's Harker Dirge. I'm the only one on there that I know of. It's a public page, but you can send me a message there now, or they can send it to my Hotmail account, which is harkerdirge@hotmail. Email is best.
Okay. For ring gear, same email, same Facebook?
Send it to me. I'll hook them up with my distributor.
Okay. And of course, the fans can interact with him there. Speaking of fans, we do have a fan question. They wanted to know what blood type you preferred to drink when you do choose to drink blood. AB, O negative. This is a fan question.
I'm trying to wean myself off of it. I don't know the difference one from the other. They all taste pretty metallic. If you want to know what it tastes like, put a penny in your mouth. It tastes like kind of copper metallic. And the way I know that primarily is from blood matches with these wrestlers.
So,
which is why I don't wrestle with some of them in hardcore.
Very good. Very good. Top 3 most influential wrestlers in Central Illinois. You've got 17 years of experience. A lot of it has been in Central Illinois. Right now, past or future, you can pick any 3 you want.
I don't know that the wrestlers are as influential as the promoters.
Those 2.
We've had promoters
McIntyre
so.
comes to mind because most of the guys that I wrestle with now came through his crew. Or Cato, also, most of the guys come through his crew. You can't have Central Illinois Wrestling right now without those 2 because they provided the platform for these guys to come in and get training and experience. And now it's just, again, like I said, everything builds and it's a step aside. I think most of the guys that are going to be back there in the dressing room came through those 2, the majority of them came through those 2 organizations.
Right. And, just to round off third, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but Justin started off in Next Generation Wrestling, which was ran by several people. Yeah. You can't just pick one. So,
But that was before I came through here.
Yeah.
So I don't know who did that. And, a lot of the guys that was at the show in Springfield last night, a lot of the guys respect Rip Mystic a lot. I've been in a ring with him, and I like him as a wrestler, as a human being. I like him too. He might be right up there with the other 2.
Rip Mystic, Justin Clark, and of course TJ/Cato. Sounds like it would be.
It'd have to be the 3.
Okay. Thank you very much for being on the nosebleed seats. I've been waiting to do this for quite a while. For Crime Fighter, this is Mystic Order of Arachnid Vigilance, member number 5706. Thanks for watching.